Chapter 12. In the quietude of dawn, when the world lay suspended between the realms of sleep and wakefulness, Lillian found herself ensconced in a cocoon of thoughts. The pale light filtering through her window illuminated the walls of her room, casting intricate patterns that danced like shadows on the verge of revelation. It was within this fragile space that she grappled with the myriad threads of her existence, the bond she cherished with Ethan, the promise that weighed heavily upon her heart, and the secrets that encased her mother in a veil of silence. Lillian rose from her bed, her movements languid yet purposeful. Today was not merely another day. It was a pivotal moment in the unfolding narrative of her life. The decision to confront her mother about the hidden truths that had long been buried beneath layers of familial obligation loomed before her like a shadow, both daunting and necessary. Dressing with an air of resolve, she donned a simple dress that fluttered gently as she moved, a reflection of her desire to shed the burdens that clung to her spirit. As she descended the staircase, the familiar sounds of the household enveloped her. Margaret's quiet humming in the kitchen, the clinking of dishes, the soft patter of footsteps. Yet, beneath this domestic symphony, Lillian sensed a dissonance, a haunting melody of unspoken fears and hidden sorrows. "Good morning, my dear," Margaret greeted, her voice bright, though Lillian could discern the undercurrents of tension that lay just beneath the surface. "I'm making pancakes. Would you like some?" The aroma of warm batter wafted through the air, its sweetness a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within Lillian. "Yes, please," she replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression of joy. As they sat at the table, the clatter of cutlery and the soft rustle of the newspaper filled the silence. Margaret busied herself with serving the pancakes, her movements deft and practiced, while Lillian wrestled with the words that danced on the tip of her tongue, eager to be set free. "Mother," Lillian began, her voice faltering slightly, "can we talk about us?" Margaret looked up, her brow furrowing with concern. "What do you mean, dear? Everything is fine, isn't it?" Lillian's heart raced at the evasive nature of her mother's words. "Is it? I feel like there are things we haven't discussed, things that need to be said." Margaret set down the spatula, her expression shifting from casual to wary. "I assure you, Lillian, there's nothing to worry about. The past is behind us." "But is it really?" Lillian pressed, her resolve hardening. "There are secrets that linger, shadows that haunt us, and I can't move forward until I understand." A silence settled between them, heavy and suffocating. Lillian could see her mother's facade beginning to crack, the carefully constructed walls trembling in the face of her daughter's inquiry. "Lillian, sometimes it's best to let the past lie undisturbed," Margaret replied, her voice low and cautious. "But how can I?" Lillian countered, her frustration boiling over. "How can I embrace my future when I am shackled by the weight of your secrets? I need to know the truth about why we've hidden so much from each other." Margaret's gaze hardened, a flicker of fear igniting in her eyes. "You don't understand, dear. Some truths are too painful to bear. I've done my best to protect you." "Protect me from what?" Lillian's voice cracked under the strain of her emotions. "I deserve to know the truth, even if it's difficult." Margaret's shoulders sagged, and Lillian could see the conflict waging within her mother's heart. "There are things about my past that I thought were best left buried," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "But perhaps it is time." With that simple admission, Lillian felt a surge of hope, as if the very air around them had shifted. "Please, Mother, I want to understand," she urged, her eyes pleading. Margaret took a deep breath, the weight of her decision hanging in the air like a fragile thread. "Very well," she said at last, her voice trembling, "but you must promise me that you will remain open to understanding. The truth may not be what you wish to hear." Lillian nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "I promise." With a heavy sigh, Margaret began to share the story that had long remained hidden, a tapestry woven with threads of sorrow and resilience. "When I was younger, I fell in love with a man who was not who he seemed. He had a charm about him, a way of making the world feel brighter. But beneath that charm lay darkness, secrets that threatened to consume us both." Lillian listened intently, her mother's words painting vivid images in her mind. "He was involved in affairs that were dangerous, and I was blissfully unaware of the depths of his involvement. When I discovered the truth, it shattered my world. I had to make a choice: protect myself and my future, or risk everything for a love that was tainted." Tears pricked at Lillian's eyes as she absorbed her mother's confession. "You left him?" she asked softly, her heart aching for the pain Margaret had endured. "I had to," Margaret replied, her voice thick with emotion. "But in doing so, I also left behind a part of myself. I didn't want to repeat that pain with you, Lillian. I thought that by shielding you from the truth, I was protecting you. And yet, in doing so, you've created a greater divide between us," Lillian said, her voice steady. "I want to understand, to help, but I can't do that if I don't know the whole story." Margaret's gaze softened, the walls she had built around her heart beginning to crumble under the weight of her daughter's compassion. "There are still pieces of the past that haunt me, Lillian. I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you would see me differently, perhaps even with disdain." "Mother, I could never see you that way," Lillian assured her, reaching across the table to take her mother's hand. "You are my mother, and I love you. I want to share the burden of your past, not carry it alone." As they sat together, hands clasped across the table, Lillian felt a profound shift in their relationship. The secrets that had once created a chasm between them were beginning to dissolve, replaced by a burgeoning understanding and empathy. "Perhaps it is time to confront the shadows together," Margaret said, her voice resolute. "I have kept too many secrets for too long. It is time to face them." Lillian nodded, a sense of relief washing over her. "Let's do it together. We can face whatever comes next." With that, Margaret began to recount the details of her past with a newfound vulnerability, revealing the complexities of her choices and the fears that had shaped her decisions. Lillian listened with rapt attention, her heart swelling with both empathy and sorrow. This was not merely a tale of love and loss. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest moments there existed the possibility of redemption and healing. As the hours passed, the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow upon the kitchen. The conversation ebbed and flowed, filled with tears and laughter, as mother and daughter forged a new bond, one built on honesty and shared understanding. The layers of the past began to peel away, revealing the raw, unfiltered truth that lay beneath. Finally, as the day drew to a close, Lillian felt a sense of peace settle within her. The truths that had once felt insurmountable were now woven into the fabric of their relationship. No longer a source of shame, but a testament to their resilience. "Thank you for sharing this with me, Mother," Lillian said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I know it wasn't easy." Marguerite smiled, the warmth of her love shining through. "You have always been my greatest treasure, Lillian. I should have trusted you with the truth long ago, but now that it is out, I feel lighter. freer than I have in years." "Let's continue to share, to be honest with each other," Lillian suggested, a glimmer of hope dancing in her eyes. "We can face whatever comes next together." Margaret nodded, her expression resolute. "Yes, together." As Lillian turned to leave, her heart lightened by the revelations and the strengthened bond she now shared with her mother. She knew that the journey ahead would still be fraught with challenges. But for the first time, she felt equipped to face them, armed with the knowledge that love and understanding could conquer even the deepest of wounds. And as she stepped into the embrace of the fading sunlight, Lillian felt a renewed sense of purpose. The hidden truths had been unveiled, and with each revelation, she felt herself drawing closer to the love she had for Ethan, ready to confront the complexities that lay ahead. No longer would she be shackled by fear. She would embrace her future with open arms, determined to weave a narrative that honored both her heart and her family. Chapter 13. The day arrived, woven in the fabric of anticipation, as Lillian prepared to attend the family gathering, a tapestry of relatives interlaced with the threads of affection, rivalry, and, unavoidably, tension. The air crackled with the promise of unspoken words and the weight of secrets, for Lillian knew that beneath the surface of joviality lay the potential for conflict, especially given the revelations of the past few days. As she stood before the mirror adjusting the collar of her dress, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. The dress was a delicate shade of blue, reminiscent of the sky just before dusk, chosen carefully to evoke calmness and poise. Yet, Lillian felt anything but calm. Her heart raced, a wild drumbeat echoing the turmoil that churned within her. The truth she had unearthed about her mother's past loomed large in her mind, and the prospect of confronting her feelings for Ethan in the presence of family was both thrilling and terrifying. "Lillian, are you ready?" Margaret called from the living room, her voice infused with that familiar blend of excitement and anxiety. "Yes, just a moment," Lillian replied, steeling herself for the emotional minefield she was about to navigate. As they entered the gathering, a gentle hum of conversation enveloped them, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of glasses. The house was alive with the presence of family, cousins she had known since childhood, aunts whose teasing smiles brought warmth, and uncles who wielded stories like weapons, each tale more grand than the last. Yet, amid this familiar chaos, Lillian felt a brittle isolation, as if she were a mere spectator in the play she had once known by heart. "Ah, there's my favorite niece," boomed Uncle Harold, his joviality washing over her like a wave. "Come here and give me a hug." Lillian forced a smile, embracing her uncle with a warmth that was partly genuine and partly an act of self-preservation. As she stepped back, her gaze flickered around the room, searching for Ethan. The moment their eyes met across the crowded space, a spark ignited within her, both electric and perilous. He was laughing with a group of relatives, his smile as radiant as the sun breaking through clouds, yet the laughter felt like a distant echo, muffled by the weight of her emotions. "Are you all right, dear?" Margaret asked, her voice laced with concern, as she observed her daughter's unease. Lillian nodded, though the truth was far more complicated. "Just a bit overwhelmed," she admitted, her thoughts swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. "It's just a lot of people." Margaret squeezed her hand gently, a gesture of solidarity. "You don't have to be anyone but yourself. Remember, we are all here for each other." As the evening unfolded, Lillian found herself caught in a delicate dance of conversation. She moved from one group to another, engaging in light banter, sharing stories, and laughing at jokes that felt both familiar and foreign. Yet, the undercurrent of tension never dissipated. It lurked just beneath the surface, a reminder of the chasm that separated her from the very people she sought to connect with. Lillian's heart clenched as she overheard snippets of conversation, relatives discussing future plans, engagements, and family legacies. Each word felt like a reminder of the weight of her own hidden truths. The laughter that surrounded her became a bittersweet symphony, each note a haunting echo of her own unvoiced fears. "Lillian!" Ethan called, breaking through the haze of her thoughts. He approached her with an easy grace, his presence an anchor amidst the chaos. "There you are. I've been looking for you." "Here I am," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, a smile breaking through her facade. "What have you been up to?" "Just trying to avoid Uncle Harold's endless stories about his fishing escapades." Ethan chuckled, his eyes sparkling with mischief. I swear, he's caught a fish the size of a small boat." They shared a laugh, and in that moment, the world around them faded, leaving only the warmth of their connection. Yet, as the laughter subsided, Lillian felt the weight of her unspoken feelings pressing down on her, a reminder of the promise she had made to her mother. "Are you enjoying the gathering?" Ethan asked, his tone shifting slightly, as if he sensed the turmoil beneath her surface. "More or less," Lillian replied, her gaze drifting toward the crowd. "It's just a lot to take in. Everyone seems so happy, and here I am, wrestling with all these complications." "Complications?" Ethan echoed, concern etching his features. "What do you mean?" Lillian hesitated, the urge to confide in him battling against the fear of revealing her heart. "It's just family dynamics, secrets, the pressure of expectations." Ethan studied her for a moment, his expression softening. "You know you can talk to me, right? Whatever it is. You don't have to carry it alone." His words stirred something within her, a yearning to share the burden that weighed so heavily on her heart. But the fear of crossing that invisible line between familial affection and romantic love held her back. "I know," she said quietly, her heart aching with the desire to be honest, yet bound by the shackles of her promise to her mother. "Let's get some fresh air," Ethan suggested, his voice a gentle invitation. "I think we could both use a moment away from all this." He gestured toward the bustling room, where laughter and conversation swirled like a tempest. Lillian nodded, grateful for the escape. They slipped out onto the porch, the cool evening air a refreshing balm against the swirling emotions that threatened to drown her. The stars sparkled overhead, a celestial tapestry illuminating the night, and for a fleeting moment, Lillian felt a sense of freedom. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Ethan murmured, gazing up at the sky. "It's easy to forget how vast the universe is when you're caught up in the minutiae of family gatherings." "It is," Lillian agreed, her heart swelling with the beauty of the moment. "Sometimes I wonder if we make our own world so small, filled with expectations and secrets, that we forget to look up and appreciate what's beyond." Ethan turned to her, his gaze intense. "What if we chose to break free from those expectations? What if we let go of the secrets and embraced the truth, no matter how messy it might be?" His words resonated deeply within her, echoing the thoughts she had been grappling with since their last conversation. "It's not as simple as that," she replied, her voice trembling. "There are consequences to every choice." "Then let's face those consequences together," Ethan replied, stepping closer, his presence radiating warmth and assurance. I don't want to hide anymore, Lillian. I want to be with you, openly. But I can't do that if we're both trapped in this web of secrecy." Lillian's heart raced at his admission, the yearning to break free, to embrace the love that blossomed between them surged within her. Yet, the fear of her mother's reaction loomed large, a specter haunting her thoughts. "What if my mother can't accept it?" she whispered, the vulnerability in her voice palpable. Ethan reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, grounding her in the moment. "You won't know until you try, and whatever happens, I'll be here. We'll navigate it together." As they stood on the porch, the world around them faded into a blur, leaving only the two of them entwined in a shared heartbeat. Lillian felt the truth of his words settling within her, a gentle nudge toward courage. Perhaps it was time to confront the lies that had constrained her, to embrace the love that felt so right. But just as she began to form the words that would free her, the door to the house swung open and Margaret stepped out, her expression shifting from surprise to concern as she spotted her daughter and Ethan standing close together. "Lillian, there you are," Margaret called, her voice tinged with a hint of urgency. "I was looking for you. The family is about to play a game, and everyone is eager for your participation." Lillian's heart sank, the moment of clarity slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. "I'll be right there," she replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression of joy. As they returned to the gathering, the tension in the room thickened, palpable as Lillian re-entered a space filled with expectations and unspoken words. The game commenced, a light-hearted affair that involved laughter and playful competition, but beneath the surface, Lillian felt the weight of her unvoiced feelings pressing down on her like a storm cloud, threatening to burst at any moment. Ethan remained by her side, their hands brushing occasionally, each contact sending sparks of electricity through her veins. Yet, as the evening wore on, Lillian found herself increasingly distracted, her mind flitting between the joy of the game and the turmoil within her heart. "Lillian, are you even paying attention?" her cousin Clara teased, nudging her with a playful grin. "You're awfully quiet tonight. Is the weight of the world on your shoulders?" Lillian forced a laugh, but the truth felt like a lead weight in her chest. "Just thinking," she replied, her gaze drifting toward Ethan, who was now engaged in conversation with a group of relatives. "About what?" Clara pressed, her curiosity piqued. "You're not falling for someone, are you?" Caught off guard, Lillian's cheeks flushed. "No, I mean, yes, sort of, just family stuff," she stammered, her heart racing at the thought of revealing even a fragment of her truth. Clara raised an eyebrow, a knowing smile creeping across her face. "Family stuff, eh? Sounds intriguing. You know you can tell me anything, right?" Before Lillian could formulate a response, Margaret's voice rang out, calling everyone's attention to the game. "All right, everyone, let's gather around for the next round." As the game continued, Lillian's mind swirled with conflict. She glanced at Ethan, who caught her gaze and offered a reassuring smile, yet the joy in his eyes felt like a bittersweet reminder of the love they were forced to conceal. The game progressed, filled with laughter and playful shouts, but the joy felt hollow to Lillian. Each moment became a reminder of the truth she had yet to voice, the love that hung in the balance, and the fear of what would come next. As the evening drew to a close, Lillian felt a sense of urgency. The gathering had only amplified the tension simmering beneath the surface, and she knew that something had to change. She could no longer navigate the labyrinth of family dynamics and unspoken truths without addressing the core of her feelings. "Ethan," she whispered, as the last guests began to trickle out, her heart pounding. "Can we talk?" "Of course," he replied, his expression shifting to one of concern. "What's on your mind?" "Let's step outside," Lillian suggested, her voice steady yet laced with anticipation. The night air greeted them like an old friend as they stepped onto the porch once more, the stars twinkling above, a witness to the moment that felt both inevitable and terrifying. "Lillian, what is it?" Ethan asked, his eyes searching hers, filled with a blend of hope and trepidation. Taking a deep breath, Lillian felt the weight of her promise to her mother pressing down on her, but the urgency to express her truth surged within her. "I can't keep hiding," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I feel so deeply for you, and it's tearing me apart to pretend otherwise." Ethan's expression softened, a flicker of relief crossing his features. "I feel the same way, Lillian. I've been waiting for you to say those words." "But," Lillian interjected, her heart racing, "what about my mother? What if she can't accept this? What if we lose everything?" "Lillian," Ethan replied, stepping closer, his presence a calming force. "Loving someone shouldn't be a secret. You deserve to be happy, and so do I. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." As the night enveloped them in its embrace, Lillian felt a shift within her, a determination ignited by the love they shared. No longer would she allow fear to dictate her choices. The road ahead might be fraught with challenges, but she knew that love was worth the risks. "Let's confront the truth together," she said, her voice steady. "I'm ready to face whatever comes next." Ethan smiled, a radiant warmth spreading across his face. "Together, then, always." As they stood beneath the vast expanse of stars, Lillian felt a sense of clarity wash over her. The secrets that had once bound her were beginning to unravel, revealing a path forward. A journey shaped by love, honesty, and the courage to embrace the truths that lay ahead. With hearts entwined and spirits unburdened, Lillian and Ethan stepped into the future, ready to confront the challenges and joys that awaited them, hand in hand, determined to forge a new narrative that honored their love and the complexities of family. Chapter 14. In the wake of the family gathering, Lillian found herself adrift in a sea of unspoken emotions, her heart a tumultuous battleground of conflicting desires and obligations. The very walls of her existence felt as though they were closing in, whispering secrets she dared not utter. It was in this disarray that she sought the counsel of her closest friend, Clara, a confidant whose laughter was a balm and whose wisdom often illuminated the darkest corners of Lillian's mind. As twilight descended upon the town, painting the sky with strokes of lavender and gold, Lillian made her way to Clara's home, a quaint cottage nestled among the trees, where ivy clung lovingly to the walls, as if trying to shield it from the world. Lillian knocked softly, her heart racing as she heard Clara's familiar footsteps approaching. "Lillian!" Clara exclaimed, swinging the door open with exuberance. "Come in, my dear. You look like you've seen a ghost." "More like I've seen 100 ghosts," Lillian replied, forcing a smile as she stepped inside. The warmth of the cottage enveloped her, a stark contrast to the chill that had settled in her heart. Clara ushered her to the cozy sitting room, where the scent of freshly baked cookies wafted through the air. "What's troubling you?" she asked, her eyes searching Lillian's face. "You can't hide behind that smile forever." Settling onto a plush armchair, Lillian sighed deeply, the weight of her secrets pressing down upon her. "It's Ethan," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "And my mother. Everything feels so complicated." "Complicated how?" Clara leaned in, her expression one of genuine concern. Lillian's thoughts spiraled into a tempest of emotions. "Ethan and we have feelings for each other, but my mother, she has her own secrets, and I promised her I wouldn't get too close to him. It's tearing me apart." Clara's brow furrowed as she processed Lillian's words. "And you love him?" "I do," Lillian admitted, her heart aching at the truth of it. "But I don't know how to reconcile that love with the promise I made to my mother. I feel like I'm caught in a web of lies." "Have you told Ethan about your mother's warning?" Clara asked, her tone thoughtful. "He deserves to know what you're facing." "I haven't," Lillian confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of what it might do to our relationship. What if he feels burdened by my family's issues?" Clara nodded, her gaze steady. "But isn't hiding the truth just as burdensome? Secrets have a way of festering if left unaddressed. You might be surprised by Ethan's response." The truth of Clara's words struck Lillian like a clarion call, awakening a flicker of courage within her. "You think he would understand?" "I believe he would," Clara replied, her voice firm. "But it's not just about him, it's about you too. You have to be honest with yourself about what you want, independent of your mother's fears." Lillian felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Clara had a gift for clarity, cutting through the fog of uncertainty that often clouded Lillian's mind. "What if I hurt my mother?" Lillian questioned, her voice trembling at the prospect. "Sometimes honesty creates more space for love," Clara said gently. "Your mother may be protective, but she also needs to know that you are your own person. You deserve happiness, Lillian." As the evening deepened, Lillian and Clara spoke at length, the conversation meandering through the complexities of love, family, and the myriad choices that shaped their lives. Lillian felt a sense of liberation as she laid bare her heart, articulating the fears and desires that had been locked away for far too long. "I feel like I'm on the precipice of something," Lillian said, her voice laced with urgency. "If I don't confront this soon, I might lose both my mother and Ethan." "Then you must take the leap," Clara encouraged. "Trust that the net will appear. You are stronger than you think." As Lillian prepared to leave, the weight of her decision loomed large in her mind, yet a newfound resolve flourished within her. She would speak to Ethan, unearthing the tangled depths of their feelings and the shadows of her family's past. With Clara's words echoing in her heart, she felt ready to face the truth. "Thank you for always being here for me," Lillian said, embracing Clara tightly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll always have me," Clara assured her, a warm smile gracing her lips. "Now go, find your truth." The following day, Lillian resolved to meet Ethan in their usual spot, a secluded glade where the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful patterns on the ground. The air was thick with the scent of blooming wildflowers, a stark contrast to the turmoil roiling within her. As she waited, her heart raced with anticipation, each passing moment heightening her anxiety. When Ethan finally arrived, his presence filled the clearing with warmth and light. "Lillian," he called, his voice brightening the shadowy corners of her mind. "You look beautiful today." "Thank you," she replied, her heart fluttering at his compliment. "I wanted to talk to you about something important." Ethan's expression shifted, a flicker of concern crossing his features. "What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, Lillian steeled herself, her thoughts crystallizing into coherence. "It's about us, and my mother. There's something you need to know." As she spoke, Lillian felt the weight of her words bearing down upon her, but she pressed on, recounting the warning her mother had given her, the promise she had made, and the tangled history that bound them all. Ethan listened intently, his brow furrowing in thought as she unfolded the layers of her heart. "I can't keep pretending," Lillian concluded, her voice firm yet laced with vulnerability. "I love you, Ethan, but I don't want to hurt my mother. I feel trapped between two worlds." Ethan was silent for a moment, his gaze piercing into hers, as if searching for the truth hidden behind her words. "Lillian, I appreciate your honesty, but you must know that I love you too. I would never want to come between you and your family." "But it feels like a choice I have to make," Lillian said, her heart aching at the thought. "I don't want to lose you, but I also want to respect my mother's wishes." "Respect is important," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "But so is your happiness. Have you considered that your mother may need to learn to let go? You're not a child anymore, Lillian." His words struck a chord within her, resonating with the very essence of her struggle. "I know," she admitted, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "But how do I navigate this without causing pain to those I love?" "By being true to yourself," Ethan said gently. "You have to find the balance. Perhaps it's time to have an open conversation with your mother about how you feel, not just for your sake, but for hers too. She deserves to know you, the real you." Lillian nodded, the weight of his words settling within her. "You're right. I need to speak to her. I can't let fear dictate my choices any longer." As they sat together in the dappled sunlight, the conversation flowed effortlessly, the bond between them deepening with each shared thought. Lillian felt a sense of clarity emerging, illuminating the shadows of doubt that had clouded her mind. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together," Ethan said, his fingers intertwining with hers, grounding her in the moment. "You're not alone in this, Lillian." In the days that followed, Lillian felt a renewed sense of purpose. She spent time reflecting, writing in her journal, and preparing for the inevitable conversation with her mother. Each word she penned was a step toward liberation, a way to clarify her thoughts and emotions. Finally, the day arrived when Lillian could no longer postpone the conversation. She found her mother in the kitchen, the soft hum of a kettle boiling providing a comforting backdrop. Margaret was lost in her thoughts, her brow furrowed as she prepared tea, a ritual that had become their shared solace. "Mother," Lillian began, her voice steady yet gentle, "can we talk?" Margaret looked up, her expression shifting from concentration to concern. "Of course, dear. What's troubling you?" Lillian took a deep breath, summoning the courage Clara had instilled in her. "It's about Ethan and how I feel. I know I promised you to keep things platonic, but—" "Lillian," Margaret interjected, her voice rising slightly, "you know I only want what's best for you. You're too young to understand the complexities of love and family." "I do understand, Mother," Lillian replied, her voice firm. "I love Ethan, and I can't pretend otherwise. Hiding my feelings is only causing more pain for both of us. I need you to understand that." Margaret's expression softened, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her features. "I worry for you, my dear. Love can be dangerous, especially when entangled with family secrets." "I know," Lillian said, her heart aching for her mother's fears. "But I can't live my life in fear of what might happen. I need to forge my own path, even if it means facing the truth about our family." Silence enveloped them, the weight of unsaid words lingering in the air like a fragile thread. Margaret's gaze dropped to the counter, and Lillian could see the conflict etched upon her face, love battling against the ingrained instinct to protect. "I don't want to lose you, Lillian," Margaret finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You mean everything to me." "And you mean everything to me," Lillian replied, stepping closer, her heart yearning for connection. "But I need you to let me be honest. I want to share my life with you, not hide it behind a wall of secrets." Margaret's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she took in her daughter's words. "I fear what the truth might bring, but perhaps it's time to confront it together." As the kettle whistled, Lillian felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. The conversation had opened a door, a path toward understanding that had long been obscured by fear and silence. Over cups of tea, mother and daughter began to navigate the complexities of love, family, and the truths that bound them. Lillian felt the tension between them ease, replaced by a tentative trust that paved the way for deeper connection. In the days that followed, Lillian and Margaret worked to rebuild the trust that had frayed under the weight of secrets. They shared stories, their laughter echoing through the halls like a long-forgotten melody. And as Lillian's heart began to heal, she found herself more determined than ever to embrace her love for Ethan openly. With each passing day, the shadows of doubt receded, replaced by a burgeoning light of hope. Lillian understood that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, yet she felt invigorated by the promise of truth. No longer would she allow fear to dictate her choices. She would embrace love, friendship, and the power of honesty. In the sanctuary of their home, Lillian forged a new path, a journey of self-discovery that honored both her heart and her family. And as she prepared to meet Ethan once more, she felt ready to face whatever the future held, hand in hand with the ones she loved. Chapter 15. The sun had barely begun its ascent, casting a soft golden hue upon the world, when Lillian sat upon her bed, engulfed by the gravity of her thoughts. The events of the past few days had left her heart heavy, a tumult of emotions swirling within her. Clara's words lingered in her mind, echoing against the walls of her conscience like a persistent melody. She had spent the night tossing and turning, the shadows of doubt and fear clinging to her like a shroud. The promise she made to her mother loomed over her, a specter that threatened to choke her burgeoning love for Ethan. Lillian felt as though she was standing at a precipice, staring into the abyss of uncertainty, where one misstep could lead to heartbreak for all involved. "Speak your truth," Clara had urged. "The only way forward is through honesty." Yet, as Lillian contemplated the repercussions of revealing her feelings to Ethan, the weight of her mother's expectations pressed heavily upon her shoulders. The decision lay before her like a crossroads, each path fraught with its own peril. If she chose to confide in Ethan, she risked shattering the delicate balance they had built, a bond woven from shared laughter and whispered secrets. The thought of Ethan's disappointment, of turning away from her in hurt, sent shivers down her spine. But to continue hiding her heart felt equally unbearable. Each day spent in silence was a day spent in a prison of her own making. Lillian knew that to deny her feelings was to deny a vital part of herself, a betrayal she could not abide. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. It was her mother, Margaret, her expression a mixture of concern and warmth. "Lillian, dear, may I come in?" "Of course, Mother," Lillian replied, her voice barely concealing the turmoil within. As her mother entered, Lillian felt a pang of guilt for the thoughts she had harbored, the rebellion brewing against the very woman who had raised her with such care. Margaret settled into the chair across from Lillian, her gaze studying her daughter intently. "You seem preoccupied. Is something troubling you?" Lillian hesitated, the words dancing on the tip of her tongue. To open the floodgates of her heart now would mean confronting not only her own feelings, but also the very foundation of their relationship. "I've just been thinking about everything," she finally said, choosing her words carefully. "About us. About Ethan." Margaret's eyes softened, and Lillian could detect the flicker of fear there. "Oh, Ethan is a fine young man, but I just want you to be cautious. Love can lead to pain, and I would hate to see you hurt." "I understand, Mother," Lillian replied, her voice steadying. "But I need to be honest with you. I've been hiding my feelings, and it's eating away at me." "What do you mean?" Margaret leaned forward, her attention fully captured. "I care for Ethan deeply," Lillian confessed, her heart racing. "I've tried to suppress it, to honor our agreement, but it feels impossible. I don't want to live a lie." Margaret's expression shifted, a mix of apprehension and resignation washing over her features. "Lillian, you must understand the complications that arise from this. Our history is fraught with secrets and unspoken truths. I only want to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "Ha ha ha!" Lillian's voice rose, a mixture of frustration and desperation. "From love? From happiness? I can't bear this secrecy any longer. I want to be free to love, even if it means facing the consequences of that love." Silence filled the room, a palpable tension hanging in the air. Lillian watched as her mother's resolve wavered, her lips pursed in thought. "It's not that simple, my dear. You must understand the weight of our family's past. There are shadows that loom over us." "But those shadows shouldn't dictate my life," Lillian replied, her voice firm with conviction. "I deserve to choose my own path. If I don't tell Ethan, I risk losing him forever, and that's a fate worse than any secret." Margaret's gaze softened, and Lillian could see the struggle within her mother's heart. "I never wanted this for you. I thought I was protecting you from the pain I endured. I thought you would be safer." "Safer without love?" Lillian interrupted, her voice laced with sorrow. "I don't want safety if it means living a half-life. I want to embrace all that life has to offer, including the risk of love." Margaret's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Lillian's heart ached for her mother's pain. "You're right," she finally said, her voice breaking. "I've held on to my fears for too long. I never wanted to stifle your happiness. Perhaps it is time for both of us to confront the truth." Lillian felt a rush of relief, a weight lifting from her shoulders, as she realized that this moment of vulnerability might just be the turning point they both needed. "Mother, I need your support. If I choose to pursue my feelings for Ethan, will you stand by me?" Margaret took a deep breath, her expression contemplative. "I will always stand by you, my dear, but you must promise me that you will be careful. Love is not just a feeling, it's a commitment, a bond that can be both beautiful and painful." "I promise," Lillian said, her heart swelling with gratitude and resolve. "Thank you for understanding. I need to speak to Ethan today." With newfound determination, Lillian stood from her chair, her mother's words resonating within her. The decision had been made. She would not shy away from her heart any longer. She felt as though she was shedding the layers of fear that had accumulated like dust over the years. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting warm rays through her window, Lillian dressed with care, choosing a light blue dress that felt both fresh and vibrant. It mirrored her mood, a reflection of the hope that now surged within her. With every brush stroke of her hair and every glance in the mirror, she felt more like herself, more like the woman she aspired to be. When she arrived at the glade where she and Ethan often met, the air was thick with the fragrance of blooming flowers, a reminder of the beauty that surrounded them. Lillian's heart raced as she spotted Ethan sitting on their favorite bench, his gaze turned toward the distant horizon, lost in thought. "Ethan," she called softly, her voice carrying on the breeze. He turned, his face lighting up with a smile that made Lillian's heart skip a beat. "Lillian, you're here. I was just thinking about you." As she approached, the world around them faded into a blur. There was only Ethan. The way his eyes sparkled in the sunlight, how effortlessly he made her laugh. But beneath the surface, the gravity of their conversation loomed, a storm waiting to break. "Can we talk?" Lillian asked, her heart hammering in her chest. "Of course," he replied, concern etching his features. "Is everything all right?" Taking a deep breath, Lillian sat beside him, her heart a tumult of anticipation and fear. "I have something important to share with you, something I've been holding back for too long." Ethan's gaze was steady, encouraging her to continue. "You can tell me anything, Lillian. I promise I'll listen." She felt the warmth of his hand brushing against hers, a grounding force amid the whirlwind of her emotions. "Ethan, I care for you. More than I should, perhaps. I've tried to deny it, to push it away, but it keeps coming back. I love you." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Lillian held her breath, waiting for Ethan's reaction, her heart racing with fear of rejection. Ethan's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and delight flashing across his face. "You love me?" he whispered, as if the reality of her confession were too wondrous to grasp. "I do," she affirmed, her voice trembling with sincerity. "But I need you to understand. The situation is complicated. My mother has strong feelings about us, and I've made promises that weigh heavily on my heart." Ethan's expression shifted, concern knitting his brow. "What do you mean? What kind of promises?" Eleni took another deep breath, preparing to lay bare the intricacies of her reality. My mother asked me to keep our relationship platonic. She fears that our feelings could lead to pain, given the secrets that haunt our family. I've tried to honor that, but I can't live a lie anymore." He was silent for a moment, absorbing her words. Lillian watched as the wheels turned in his mind, his expression shifting from shock to understanding. "Lillian, I appreciate your honesty, but you must know that I care for you deeply, and I'm willing to face whatever challenges may come." "But what about your family?" Lillian asked, her heart aching at the thought of entangling him in her mother's web of fears. "I don't want to be the cause of any strife." Ethan took her hand firmly, grounding her in the moment. "I'm not afraid of strife. Love is worth fighting for, Lillian. If we're meant to be together, we'll find a way. I don't want to lose you, and I won't let fear dictate our future." Tears brimmed in Lillian's eyes, a blend of relief and joy flooding her heart. "You truly mean that?" "Absolutely," he replied, his voice steady with conviction. "We'll face it together. I want you in my life, not just as a friend, but as something much deeper." As they sat together in the glade, the warmth of the sun enveloping them, Lillian felt the weight of her fears begin to dissipate. The path ahead would not be easy, but for the first time, she felt a sense of hope blossoming within her. She had chosen to embrace her truth, to confront the complexities of love and family, and in doing so, she had taken the first step toward liberation. Lillian squeezed Ethan's hand, gratitude and love intertwining in her heart. "Thank you for being understanding. I'm ready to face whatever comes next, as long as we do it together." "Together!" Ethan echoed, his smile brightening the world around them. In that moment, Lillian knew she had made the right decision. The road ahead might be fraught with challenges, but with Ethan by her side, she felt ready to embrace the truth of her heart. Together, they would navigate the intricacies of love and family, forging a new path filled with hope and possibility. Chapter 16. The morning sun filtered through the delicate lace curtains of Lillian's room, casting intricate patterns upon the floorboards. Yet, despite the beauty of the day, a storm brewed within her heart. The resolution she had found with Ethan felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Now the specter of her mother's apprehension lingered in the air, a palpable tension that threatened to unravel the fragile peace she had just begun to establish. As she dressed, each garment felt heavy with the weight of her emotions. Lillian caught her reflection in the mirror, a young woman standing on the cusp of adulthood, her face a canvas of uncertainty and resolve. Today, she would confront her mother about the feelings she had for Ethan, and the thought sent shivers down her spine. Would her mother understand? Or would she become a storm cloud, ready to drown Lillian's newfound courage? Lillian's resolve hardened as she descended the staircase. She found her mother in the kitchen, the warm scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sweetness of cinnamon rolls. Margaret stood with her back to Lillian, humming softly, a sound that usually brought comfort but now felt like an ominous prelude. "Good morning, Mother," Lillian said, her voice steady despite the tumult inside. Margaret turned, a smile gracing her lips that quickly faltered upon seeing the intensity in Lillian's eyes. "Good morning, dear. You look thoughtful." "May I speak with you?" Lillian asked, her heart pounding against her ribcage. She could feel the tension prickling in the air, as if the universe itself held its breath. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Margaret replied, her tone shifting to one of concern. Lillian took a deep breath, the words she had rehearsed bubbling to the surface. "It's about Ethan." She paused, assessing her mother's reaction, which was immediate. A tightening of the lips, a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. "Ethan?" Margaret echoed, her voice carefully measured. "What about him?" "I can't keep pretending that my feelings for him are just those of a sister," Lillian said, her voice rising with a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "I love him, Mother. I can't deny it any longer." Margaret's expression hardened, a mask of maternal protectiveness slipping into place. "Lillian, we've spoken about this. You know the complexities involved. I thought we had an understanding." "We do, but..." Lillian pressed on, her heart racing. "I want to be honest with you. I can't continue to hide my feelings. It's tearing me apart." Margaret's shoulders stiffened, and Lillian could see the struggle etched on her mother's face. "You're young, dear. Love can be blinding. You must consider the consequences of your actions." "The only consequence I fear is losing Ethan," Lillian retorted, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I need to know if you can accept this part of my life. I want to share my truth with you, to be able to love openly, without fear of retribution." "Lillian, I only wish to protect you," Margaret replied, her voice softer but still resolute. "You don't know the pain that can arise from entangled relationships, especially when family is involved." "Isn't it my pain to bear?" Lillian shot back, her passion igniting a fire within her. "Every day I live in this house, Every moment I pretend that my heart does not yearn for Ethan is another moment stolen from me. I cannot live a lie." Margaret's expression faltered, and for a moment Lillian saw a glimpse of the woman who had once been free-spirited and vibrant before life's burdens had dulled her shine. "You cannot understand the weight of our family history, Lillian. There are shadows that follow us, and I fear what this could bring." "Then let us face those shadows together," Lillian cried, her frustration morphing into desperation. "I'm not a child anymore. I have the right to choose whom I love, just as you did. Please, don't let fear dictate my choices." The kitchen fell silent, the tension thick enough to slice through. Lillian's heart raced, her breath quickening as she searched her mother's eyes for any sign of understanding. Margaret stood frozen, her hands trembling slightly as she took in her daughter's impassioned plea. "I cannot condone this," Margaret finally said, her voice choked with emotion. "You must promise me that you will think this through. Relationships like this can lead to heartbreak, to ruin. I've seen it happen before." "Mother, I'm asking you to trust me," Lillian implored, stepping closer, her heart laid bare. "You taught me to follow my heart, to be brave. I want to be that brave person. I want to be honest with you and with myself." Margaret's facade cracked, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's not easy for me to let go of my fears. I thought I was protecting you, preparing you for a world that can be cruel." "And I appreciate that truly," Lillian whispered, her voice softening, "but I can't let your fears govern my life. I want to carve out my own path, one that may be fraught with risk, but also with love." Silence enveloped them once more, and Lillian held her breath, waiting for her mother to respond. The air was thick with the weight of unspoken truths, their shared history echoing between them. "Finally," Margaret sighed, her shoulders sagging as if the burdens of the world had settled back into place. "Lillian, I want you to be happy, but I cannot give you my blessing without knowing that you have considered everything at stake." "Then let me show you," Lillian said, a spark of hope igniting within her. "Let me love Ethan openly, and if it leads to pain, then I will bear it. But if you do not allow me this chance, I will feel the weight of that regret for the rest of my life." Margaret looked at her daughter, the fierce determination in Lillian's eyes a mirror of her own youthful spirit. "You are so much like me at your age," she murmured, a bittersweet smile gracing her lips. "You have the same fire, the same passion. It frightens me, and yet you admire it," Lillian finished, her heart racing with elation. "You understand, don't you, that we both deserve to pursue our happiness, even if it comes with risk?" Margaret's gaze softened, and Lillian could see the walls of protection begin to crumble. "I do understand, dear. It pains me to think of you getting hurt, but I cannot keep you from your own heart." Lillian stepped forward, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Mother. You have no idea how much this means to me." "But know this," Margaret said, her voice steadying. "If you choose to pursue this relationship with Ethan, you must be prepared for anything. Love can be a tempest, and you must weather it with strength." "I will," Lillian vowed, her voice filled with determination. "I promise to be honest and open, both with Ethan and with you." As Lillian embraced her mother, the warmth of their connection enveloped them like a comforting blanket. In that moment, she felt the weight of her mother's fears begin to lift, replaced by a cautious acceptance that would pave the way for her own journey towards love. With the conversation behind her, Lillian felt a surge of clarity. She was ready to face the world, ready to embrace the love that had blossomed between her and Ethan. The shadows of doubt that had clouded her path were beginning to dissipate, replaced by the radiant light of possibility. Later that evening, Lillian and Ethan met in their secret glade, the world around them alive with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow upon the earth, as if nature itself conspired to celebrate their love. "Lillian!" Ethan exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with warmth as she approached. "You look radiant tonight." "Thank you," she replied, her heart fluttering at the sight of him. "I have something important to share." Ethan's expression shifted to one of concern, and he stepped closer. "What is it? You seem different." "I am different," Lillian said, her voice steady. "I spoke with my mother today. I told her everything, my feelings for you, the truth I've been hiding." Ethan's eyes widened, hope and apprehension battling within him. "And what did she say?" "She was afraid, of course," Lillian continued, her heart racing as she recounted the conversation. "But she came to understand that I deserve to pursue my own happiness. She's willing to support us, to accept our love, as long as I promise to be honest with her." Ethan's face broke into a radiant smile, his joy palpable in the air between them. "That's incredible! I knew you could do it. You're so brave, Lillian." Lillian felt a rush of warmth at his praise, her heart swelling with affection. "It's not just me, Ethan. It's us. We're in this together." As they stood beneath the moonlit sky, Lillian felt a sense of freedom wash over her. The weight of secrets had begun to lift, replaced by the intoxicating promise of love. She reached for Ethan's hand, intertwining their fingers, solidifying their connection. Two hearts united against the world. "Let's make a pact," Lillian said, her voice firm. "No more hiding. We will embrace our love openly and honestly, no matter the challenges that arise." "Agreed," Ethan replied, determination shining in his eyes. "We'll face whatever comes our way, together." As they stood entwined beneath the stars, Lillian knew that their journey would not be without its trials. But with each passing moment, she felt the strength of their bond growing, a force that could withstand the tempests of life. In that sacred space, filled with whispers of the wind and the songs of the night, Lillian and Ethan began to dream of a future, unbound by the chains of secrecy. Together, they would navigate the complexities of love, family, and the truth they had chosen to embrace. And as the moon illuminated their path, Lillian felt an undeniable certainty that they were destined for something beautiful, something profound. Chapter 17. The dawn unfurled across the horizon, painting the sky in hues of soft lavender and amber, yet within Lillian a tempest brewed fiercer than any storm. The night had been restless, her mind a cacophony of thoughts, each clamoring for attention, each laden with implications. She had pored over her mother's words, the weight of her confession hanging heavy in the air, the promise of love mingling with trepidation. Today, she stood at a precipice, the choice before her like a forked road shrouded in mist. As she prepared for the day, Lillian felt the familiar brush of fabric against her skin, the simple act of dressing becoming a ritual of self-affirmation. She chose a flowing white blouse, its delicate lace reminiscent of the innocence she yearned to reclaim, paired with a deep blue skirt that echoed the depths of her emotions. Each piece of clothing was a statement, a silent declaration of who she wished to be, a woman unafraid to embrace her truth. When Lillian descended the staircase, the echoes of her footsteps seemed to reverberate through the very core of the household. The scent of breakfast wafted through the air, warm and inviting. yet it felt foreign against the backdrop of her internal struggle. Her mother was already at the table, a figure of serene composure, but Lillian sensed the undercurrents of tension that simmered just beneath the surface. "Good morning, Lillian," Margaret greeted, her voice light, though her eyes betrayed the remnants of last night's confrontation. "Good morning, Mother," Lillian replied, forcing a smile that felt brittle on her lips. She took her seat, the table laden with an array of breakfast delights, yet the food seemed to lose its allure as thoughts of Ethan flooded her mind. Would he understand her need for clarity? Would he be willing to navigate the uncertain waters of their love? As they ate, the conversation flowed like a gentle brook. Small talk about the weather, the upcoming family gathering, but beneath the surface, an unspoken tension lingered. Lillian's heart raced, the moment of truth looming ever closer. She could no longer hide from the choice that lay before her. "Lillian," her mother began, her tone shifting to something more serious, "have you given any thought to what we discussed? It's important that you consider the implications carefully." The weight of Margaret's gaze bore down upon Lillian, and the air thickened with expectation. "I have thought about it, Mother," Lillian replied, her voice steadying. "And I believe it's time for me to speak with Ethan. I need to understand where we stand, and what we mean to each other." Margaret's expression tightened, a flicker of concern crossing her features. "Are you certain this is the right path? Love, especially one born from such complexity, can lead to heartache." "I understand the risks," Lillian said, her heart pounding. "But is it not better to know, to face the truth, rather than remain shackled by uncertainty?" Margaret sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly as if the burdens of the past clawed at her resolve. "I want you to be happy, but I cannot let go of my fears so easily. I've seen what happens when love intertwines with family. It can be devastating." "Yet I cannot live in fear of what might happen," Lillian replied, her voice rising with emotion. "I want to choose my own destiny, to embrace the love I feel for Ethan. It is my heart that is at stake here, and I must be brave enough to follow it." With that, Lillian stood, her chair scraping against the floor as she made her way to the door. She felt the weight of her mother's gaze upon her, a mix of pride and apprehension swirling in the air between them. "I'll speak with Ethan," she said, her voice firm. "I must know if our love can endure the challenges ahead." As she stepped outside, the cool morning breeze kissed her cheeks, refreshing her spirit like a balm. The world beyond the threshold felt vibrant and alive, yet her heart raced with uncertainty. She made her way to the glade, a place that had borne witness to so many of their shared moments, where laughter and whispers danced like fireflies in the twilight. When she arrived, Ethan was already there, seated on their favorite bench, his head bowed, as if lost in thought. The sight of him sent a cascade of warmth through her, yet with it came the gravity of the conversation that lay ahead. He looked up, and their eyes met, a spark igniting the air around them. "Lillian!" he exclaimed, rising to greet her with a smile that melted away the tension in her chest. "You're here! I was hoping you'd come." "I needed to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "There's something important we must discuss." "Is everything all right?" Ethan asked, concern etching his features. "You seem, different." "I am different," Lillian replied, her heart racing as she took a seat beside him. "I've made a decision about us, about what I want." Ethan's expression shifted, anticipation flickering in his eyes. "What is it? You know you can tell me anything." I've spoken with my mother, and I've realized that I can no longer hide my feelings for you, Lillian began, her voice steady despite the storm within. I love you, Ethan, and I want to pursue this relationship with you. I need to know if you feel the same. His gaze softened, a mixture of surprise and relief washing over his features. Lillian, I've been waiting for you to say that. I care for you deeply, more than I ever thought possible. But are you sure about this? There are so many complexities involved. I know, she replied, her heart pounding as she laid her emotions bare. But I cannot continue to live in the shadows. I want to embrace this love, to be with you openly and without fear, but it means facing whatever challenges may arise, together. Ethan's expression turned contemplative, and Lillian held her breath, her heart caught between hope and apprehension. If we choose this path, we must be prepared for the consequences. Your mother's fears are not unfounded. I've seen the way she looks at us. I understand, Lillian said, her voice softening, but I believe that love is worth the risk. I cannot let fear dictate my choices any longer. I want to build a future with you, one that is honest and true. A moment of silence enveloped them, the weight of their decision heavy in the air. Ethan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers, an unspoken promise passing between them. Then, let us face this together, he said, his voice resolute. Whatever comes, we'll navigate it side by side. Lillian's heart soared at his words, a sense of elation mingling with the weight of their choice. Together, she echoed, her voice filled with determination. We will confront the challenges, and if it leads us to heartache, at least we will have lived our truth. As they sat in the glade, the sun filtering through the leaves above, Lillian felt a profound sense of clarity wash over her. She had chosen to embrace love, to pursue happiness despite the shadows that lingered. The choice was not merely about her feelings for Ethan. It was a declaration of her desire to live authentically, to honor her heart's deepest yearnings. Let us not rush into anything, Ethan suggested, his tone cautious yet hopeful. We must take the time to understand the implications of our relationship. I want to ensure we're both ready for what comes next. Lillian nodded, appreciating his thoughtfulness. We will take it one step at a time. I want to be sure of my feelings, to explore what this means for us without the pressure of expectations. Then we'll make a plan, Ethan said, his smile returning. Let's focus on nurturing our bond, on learning more about each other. I want to know every part of you, Lillian, your dreams, your fears, everything. As they sat together, the sunlight filtering down like golden threads weaving a tapestry of hope, Lillian felt the stirrings of a new beginning. Their journey would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them, hand in hand with the man she loved. In the weeks that followed, Lillian and Ethan carved out moments amidst the chaos of their lives, each encounter a step toward understanding the depths of their connection. They explored the world around them, strolling through gardens blooming with life, sharing secrets beneath the stars, and speaking of dreams that felt so distant yet within reach. With each passing day, Lillian felt her heart blossom, filling with the warmth of love and companionship. Yet, the specter of her mother's concerns lingered in the shadows, a reminder of the complexities that lay ahead. Lillian knew that she had yet to face the ultimate test, revealing the full extent of her relationship with Ethan to Margaret. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the living room, Lillian resolved to confront her mother once more. It was time to bridge the gap between their worlds, to allow her mother to see that love could be a force for healing rather than division. "Mother," Lillian called, her heart racing as she found Margaret in the kitchen, preparing a simple dinner. "Can we talk?" Margaret looked up, a hint of apprehension crossing her features. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" Lillian took a deep breath, summoning her courage. "I want to share something important. I've been spending time with Ethan, and it's more than friendship. I love him, Mother. I hope you can understand." Margaret's expression froze, a mixture of surprise and concern flashing across her face. "You're serious?" "Yes," Lillian replied, her voice strong. "I've made my choice, and I want you to be a part of it. I believe that love can heal the wounds of the past, and I want you to support me in this." Silence enveloped the room, the air thick with unspoken words. Lillian held her breath as she watched her mother process the revelation. Finally, Margaret spoke, her voice trembling. "Lillian, I only want what's best for you, but this is complicated. You must understand the risks involved." "I do understand," Lillian said, her heart pounding. "But I cannot live in fear of what could happen. I want to embrace my truth, to build a life filled with love and honesty." Margaret's gaze softened, a flicker of understanding breaking through the apprehension. "I remember a time when I thought love could conquer all, but it can also bring heartache, Lillian. I don't want to see you hurt." "I appreciate your concern, Mother," Lillian replied, her voice steady, "but I must follow my heart. I need you to trust me, just as I'm learning to trust myself." Margaret sighed, the weight of her fears etched upon her brow. "I will try, dear, but know that I will always worry. It's what mothers do." Lillian stepped forward, wrapping her arms around her mother in a warm embrace. "I want you to be a part of my life with Ethan. Together, we can navigate whatever comes our way. Love should not isolate us, it should bring us closer." As they held each other, Lillian felt a sense of relief wash over her. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she had taken a crucial step toward bridging the divide between her heart and her family. With each passing moment, she felt the weight of her choice solidifying, a foundation upon which she would build her future. In the weeks to come, Lillian and Ethan continued to grow closer, their love blossoming amidst laughter and tenderness. They shared dreams of the future, of traveling together, of creating a life filled with joy and adventure. Yet, amidst the sweetness of their moments together, the shadows of doubt still loomed at the edges of their happiness. Lillian knew that their love would face trials, but she was determined to embrace the journey, to face each challenge with courage and conviction. And as she looked at Ethan, his eyes sparkling with warmth and understanding, she felt a sense of hope, a belief that love could indeed prevail, that together they could carve out a space where their hearts could flourish. And so, with the sun setting on the horizon, Lillian stepped boldly into her future, hand in hand with the man she adored, ready to face whatever challenges their love might bring. The choice had been made, and in that choice she found the promise of a life lived authentically, filled with love, connection, and the courage to embrace her truth.